Hi lovely friends, it's Alora and welcome back to the Girl Becoming channel. Today I'm here to share with you all of the books that I read in the month of June. Now, as you can see, there's nothing behind me. I'm not at home right now, so sorry about that, but I just decided, it's been way too long since I put up a video. Anyway, enough about that. June was a crazy month for me. I moved thousands of miles across the country yet again because my life is just like in this constant state of upheaval these days. But here I am to share with you the books that I read in the month of June. So the very first book that I finished was a book that I read on my phone, and that was The 4 Agreements. I feel like this book has been inducted into the canon of self-help literature, and I was shocked at myself that I had never read it before. Don Miguel Ruiz details these 4 things that he believes you should live by, these 4 tenets that you should live by in order to live a happy, peaceful, contented life where you feel like you've done a good job and done your best. The 4 agreements are to be impeccable with your word, not to take anything personally, not to make assumptions, and to always do your best. And he details why it is important that you live by these tenets. I'm not one to go around dissing good advice, and I think that all of these things are important. And I think for me especially, it was good to connect with the idea of not breaking agreements, which he talked about as being impeccable with your word. And it really made me stop and think, what am I talking about? Am I bringing negativity into my conversations? Am I gossiping about anybody? Am I talking negatively about people with other people when I don't need to be doing that? And am I keeping my agreements with myself? Am I doing the things that I've said to myself I'm going to do? And so I think that this was a solid book. I personally didn't connect with it. I feel like a lot of people hold it near and dear to their hearts and it's really important in their lives, and it wasn't one of those books for me, but I did find it to be useful and helpful, just as a tool of self-reflection. The next book that I read was a manga, which is very out of character for me, but I try to read diversely, and so that was Blank Canvas, My So-Called Artist Journey by Kiko Higashimura, and she is essentially the artist and designer of Princess Jellyfish, the Princess Jellyfish manga series, which I've never read, but this book is about her journey going through and trying to get into a prestigious art school. And her sensei, her teacher, essentially it details the incredible amount of work she had to put in order to get to this place in her career where she is well known and beloved in the manga community, but that it took a lot of effort, it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and I thought it was interesting. I didn't love this story by any means, but I did feel like it would be really fascinating if you were interested in her other series and her artwork. The next book that I read was To Build a Home, which is a poetry and prose collection by Hina Mian. I feel like this work is very in line with the whole movement of Rupi Kaur and the woman who wrote The Princess Saves Herself in the End, and that kind of poetry. It's very female empowerment, it's very based upon relationship issues, domestic violence. It does include illustrations throughout too, which I find to be lovely. I personally like this kind of book because you can fly through it really quickly. It's usually very emotionally evocative, and it tells a story, so you're really understanding how someone feels about their life, how someone feels about their body or about their relationships, or about becoming empowered, becoming their own person, and I find it to be inspirational. Personally, I would recommend looking up her Instagram because the way in which she puts her poems with scrapbooking and collage style art is beautiful, and I really enjoy that. After that, I read in one day a book that has been on my TBR for years. It's a middle school or a middle grade novel called Gracefully Grayson by Amy Polonsky. This is a story about a young transgender girl who was born a boy and doesn't feel like she fits in her body or in her gender. Grayson was orphaned at a young age and has come to live with her aunt and uncle, and she's going to middle school right now and just coming to terms with the fact that she really doesn't feel like a boy, and all of the repercussions that come along with that: school bullying, teasing, parental, or in her case, her aunt and uncle perhaps not agreeing with her choice, families having a hard time with it, the school board having a hard time with it. The story is unique because it intertwines a school play or a production in there, and so that was really a fun element as somebody who did theater as a kid and throughout high school. I I liked seeing that. The whole theater atmosphere is a really fun one. While I don't think by any means this is the best book that I've read with transgender representation, I did think that it was a solid book and that it would be good for a middle schooler, especially one who either is transgender or who knows someone who is transgender and needs to develop a little bit more empathy. The final book that I read in the month of June is actually a book that I was reading the entire month, and that is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in his Mistborn trilogy, which is something that I'm just so behind on. I feel like I should have read this ages ago. And it's a chunky book. It's almost 800 pages, which is why it took me so long to read. I kind of interspersed it throughout the month with other things that I was reading because I have a hard time just sitting down and reading an 800-page book, if you know what I mean. And this is part of my personality. I really like to finish things, so I prefer shorter books, typically. But this was really well done. I feel like with Brandon Sanderson, he's just so technically good and his storylines are so unique. So I'm sure you probably know, but Mistborn centers around this magical system in which certain people can consume metal and then have very specific abilities that go along with that certain type of metal. This allomantic system is very complex and well developed, and the world is very broad and well developed. And I feel like the characters are all quite distinct, which I appreciate. The only thing that I have found that I haven't enjoyed about this series is that I don't feel very connected to the characters. I feel like, well, if one of them died, like, even if it was a main character, you know, which is unfortunate because I feel like they are, like I said, distinct characters. I just don't care about them. And I'm not sure where that gap is, and I know that a lot of people absolutely adore this series, so it might just be me, but I also have had some friends who have read this series and have felt the same way. So I'm not sure. It might be a personality thing, it might be a reading style thing, but for sure it was still a very solid read and I would love to pick up the third one. I do own the final book in this trilogy, and so I'm sure I'm going to read it within the next month or two. So those are all of the books that I completed in the month of June, but there is a book that I read almost finished in June and finished on July 1st that I want to talk about, and that is The Crane Wife by Patrick Ness. First of all, this is one of the most gorgeous covers I've ever seen in my entire life. It is beautiful. This is such a tale. Words are eluding me. I feel like Patrick Ness is an incredible storyteller, and the way in which he weaves together words is truly enchanting. It makes you feel like you're in another world even when he's talking about mundane things. It makes you open your eyes up to things that are everyday and realize, wow, that's such a beautiful way to put that, and that is how that thing feels. And it was so good. So this is a story about a middle-aged man living in London who has a daughter who is divorced and who one night has this beautiful crane come into his backyard with an arrow stuck through her wing. The story takes off from there, blending in this traditional Japanese myth with just a regular old guy living his life in London, owning his print shop. And one thing that I really liked about it is that it incorporated this beautiful sense of artwork, because each of the two main characters, there were actually three main characters, his daughter Amanda was one of them, but George the man and Kumiko the crane woman, they both have their own unique style of artwork, and they blend them together to create something that you can really picture in your mind as gorgeously surreal, and I really appreciated that element to the story. So I feel like this was my favorite book of the month, even though I technically finished it in July, but I just wanted to give it an honorable mention because most of it was read in June. All right, friends, thank you so much for watching this video. I will have another one out for you very, very soon because I'm getting back in the swing of things. Soon I'll be back with a normal setup behind me, and hopefully everything will even its way out. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite book in June was, and I'll see you in my next video. Until then, love you.